Hello, everyone.
Hey, folks.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I have Dmitry, Lyalin with me. I'm Olia, Gavrysh. I'm PM on Dotnet Desktop. And Dmitry, if anybody doesn't know you, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Dmitry Lyalin, and I'm a PM on the .NET team, like Olia. And right now, I work in the .NET MAUI team, and I also am responsible for hard reload stuff like .NET and XAML.
Awesome. And today we have an episode focused mostly on your questions. So please ask questions in the chat, and we'll do a short intro with updates, what has happened since the last time. So the first one, let me share my screen. We got .NET 6 Preview 6. And this is the second to last preview before we enter RC. We will have two RCs. Preview 6 is kind of small, but Preview 7 will be bigger. And in Preview 6, we have updates to 64-bit emulation. We have new SDK optional workload improvements. We got 3 new commands. That's .NET Workload Search, .NET Workload Uninstall, and .NET Workload Repair. And in previous preview, we added the following commands: install, list, and update. We have libraries, TSL support for system directory service protocols. CrossGen 2 replaces CrossGen, updates for tools. Libraries, improved sync over async performance. Runtime updates, and CodeGen changelog. We also have a release of Visual Studio 22 Preview 2. It is out. It's available for you to download, and let us know if there are any questions, any issues, any questions. Please help us with the preview. This is the button that you can get Visual Studio 2022 Preview. And in this preview, we updated the icons to make them more crisp and better to see. In the preview 1, we updated font to Cascadian code that is easier to read. And in the second preview, update to icons. We also made updates to C++ build tools. So the latest version 146 of C++ build tools, and It is binary compatible with previous C++ toolset, shipping with Visual Studio 2019 and older. We also got updates to live preview that we showed you in the last episode. And we made some updates to hot reload that Dmitry will show you later. All right, that is it. And another news from Winforms, we started working on high DPI. We've heard the feedback that high DPI issues are very unpleasant for you folks, so we started improving high DPI for Winforms. And we just got the PR adding support for container controls and MDI child window scaling in per monitor v2 mode. So let me actually show you before and after. That is the picture before for container controls, and this is after. And the next one would be MDI child window. That's how it looked before, and now it looks much better.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's such a big improvement.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Thanks. Yes, with that, I think we can go ahead and show what's new in hot reload, Dmitry. How about that?
Sure, sounds good. So let's start. Well, share my screen here. Unfortunately, I don't have two monitors today, so I'm just gonna hope, Olia, that people can see my screen. I'll let you manage that. So hi, folks. I want to talk a little bit about hot reload, and somebody might still be new to this technology, so I'm going to start kind of from the beginning. So before I talk about the release notes and kind of what's new, let's go to Visual Studio for a second. And I'm going to show you a demo that I've done a bunch of times before. This is a demo of a .NET MAUI app running inside of a WinUI app. So this is a Windows app. And over here, we have this wind indicator. And what the .NET Hot Reload is trying to accomplish is make you restart your applications less as you develop when you have to make code changes. So we're looking to give you that productivity, right? When your app is running and restarting it can be very expensive, especially in certain kind of large-scale apps. So we want to reduce the number of times you're going to have to restart. We're not going to eliminate every single time you have to restart, but we're going to definitely try between .NET 6 and future releases to make that list of what's supported more and more. So let's show the most basic example. Here I have the debugger attached to the app, so I'm running in a debug build, and I have this new button up here called Apply Code Changes. Now this button will soon be renamed to Hot Reload, but in this release, so this is like public bits. This is Visual Studio 22 Preview 2, something you can go ahead and download. I'm not showing you anything that's hidden whatsoever.
Dmitry, I'm sorry. Are you showing your screen?
I should be.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, so here's Visual Studio, and here's the Apply Code Changes button right here at the top. And as you can see, debugger's attached, we're in debug mode, and the app is running. So in this case, if I wanted to make changes to code, to XAML, that would have been possible in the past. But if I want to change C# code, I'd have to stop my app, make the code change, rebuild, and redeploy, and then run it again, and then only see my changes. So that's the thing we're trying to make easier. So here I'm going to make the most simplest change possible. I'm going to change one value. Instead of getting the value from a method, I'm going to just change it to 0 because I want to see what happens. And I'm going to use the magical Apply Code Changes button. And in my running app, my wind simulator indicator stopped moving because the value is now 0. And of course, I can go back in. I can put that back in here and go in and see it start moving again. So it's a really simple demo, but it just indicates like what kind of changes you're able to make. And the changes are quite extensive. Like I could have built out the get direction method. So if we go to the definition of this thing, like, if I wanted to make this method and put its value in, all of that would have worked, right? There are limitations. If I wanted to change the static read-only double, like that's something I couldn't do today, unfortunately. That's still a limitation, but a lot of things are possible. So I just wanted to show the simple debugger demo. And we're really excited to continue to evolve where Hot Reload is available. So today, Hot Reload is in preview, available as part of .NET 6, .NET Watch CLI. So Visual Studio is not even required. You can .NET Watch into a .NET 6 app. So .NET 6 is required. But if your app is .NET 6, you can use .NET Watch and then any code editor, even Notepad, to change the files and apply changes on save. Now, if you're using Visual Studio, you get an even better experience. You get this really easy to use command, hard reload command. You don't even need to save the files. It can apply changes from in memory, and it works with the debugger since Preview 1 of Visual Studio 2022. So what are we excited to talk about today? Let's switch to release notes. So we are slowly rolling this feature out, so not everything was supported right away. And in Preview 2, we're making more things supported, just like in Preview 3, and in future releases, we'll make even more things supported before Visual Studio goes GA later this year. So the first thing that we've added here is support for Razor files. There's still a lot of work to be done. Razor files are quite complicated, but if you're running the latest .NET 6 Preview 6 and Visual Studio 22 Preview 2 in combination, again, both are out. You can go try it today. You can start making these sort of changes. You can go into your Razor app in the debugger, hit the Apply Changes button, and see a change immediately. So it's really, really great to see that finally happening. Folks will potentially want to try this with Blazor WASM. That is not supported yet. So we support like the regular Razor page running from server, but we don't support WASM scenarios yet. We are working on them. Now next.
This is awesome. Great.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Razor is amazing. I love us adding support there. So with that, we also have a section in the release notes. These are the Visual Studio 2022 release notes, of course, because this is where the changes are. We have all the changes that we are supporting now. So here, let's talk through it. This is super exciting. As of this release, for the first time ever, we support C++ apps as well. We won't have kind of every single possible hard reload technology come to C++, at least in the first release, but we were able to make the F5 scenario work for basic changes. So if you have a C++ app and you're running it, you no longer have to hit a breakpoint to make changes. Under the debugger, you're going to be able to use the same Applaud Code Changes button at the top. And all the limitations of ENC still apply. So this technology, hard reload, is built on top of ENC, edit and continue, for both .NET and C++, which are slightly different implementations. But we have documentations on like what is or isn't supported. So that's great here. And again, it's a huge release. Let's get you testing it. We'd love to hear what you think. I know there's some complexities with C++. I'm not a C++ developer, but there's optimized code in certain cases could cause problems for hard reload. It's not magic technology, but hopefully in many scenarios, folks will find it useful. So go try it with a C++ app. For .NET, we have the following 3 bullets of improvements. So for .NET, we now support Control F5 for the first time. We've said this a while back that we wanted to support it. The idea is that some customers might not want to, they might want to use Visual Studio, but they might not want to use F5 as the way to debug their application. Some people say Control F5 for them is much faster, or maybe people are just used to that workload, and we wanted to make hard reload available in that scenario as well. And with this release, we finally have it available. So this took a huge amount of work. It's now working for Windows Forms, WPF Console, ASP.NET Core, and Blazor Server. It does not work yet for Blazor WASM. Again, there's some complexity with WASM that we're working through, but at least for a lot of type of customers, you can go ahead and try it. It also does not work, and in this release, will not work for MAUI. So unfortunately, MAUI was below the cut line for Control F5, but the good news is MAUI is above the cut line for F5. So as long as you're debugging using F5, MAUI hard reload will work. And if you're doing other kinds of development, Control F5 will also work. And we want to bring Control F5 to MAUI eventually, just not in this release. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time to do it. We also are continuing our promise of making more things be supported. By more things, sorry, I should be specific, more kinds of edits, right? We, for example, had limitations on editing custom attributes, records, changing switch expressions, pound line directives. So every release, we're trying to add more and more to the supported column, including Razor pages. Some limitations, but yeah, Razor pages are coming. Eventually, .cs HTML files are coming as well. So for like Blazor scenarios. So I'm really excited. Just these 3 bullets right here. I mean, the amount of work it took, I really want to give thanks to the team. There's so many hardworking people behind the scenes, really trying to make all this come together in this release. By this release, I mean like Dev 17, as we call it internally, VS 22, before GA hits, and .NET 6. So really excited there. And we also improved the multi-process attach scenario. This was kind of working before. I was laughing. Isa was on the show recently, right? And Isa pointed out that a bunch of stuff works. She's the dev working on it, and she told me in one of our meetings before that the multi-process scenario wasn't working as reliably as we'd like it. So we prioritize fixing it. So now if you do like multi-start, so if you have a solution that starts multiple projects, you can get hot reload against all of them, and edit and continue as well. So really, really awesome there. So I want to show a demo of Control F5, but before that, Olia, do we have any questions or anything that I need to address? Because I can't see the questions screen.
Sorry, it was muted. So yeah, we had some, and some of them you already addressed. So one question, how exactly does C++ hot reload work?
Yes, that's a great question. Just like the .NET equivalent, cousin, brother, whatever you want to call it, we are basically taking advantage in this release of the fact that we have had edit and continue technology. So C++ has edit and continue. There's documentation right here for C++ edit and continue. So this technology has been there for a while, which has meant that on a breakpoint, you could edit your code. Just like with .NET, edit and continue, you could hit a breakpoint and then change your code. And as you change your code, this documentation here will tell you all about it, including supported code changes. So you can go ahead and come in there and you can make a change that would be applied. So we've made that as an experience available outside of the breakpoint, outside of the paused app state. So now your app does not have to be in a pause app state. It could be running. A great example of this is just kind of to visualize it right in your head. Imagine you have a C++ app that's animating a turning camera like a light or something, right? That's spinning all around, and the light is white coming out of the camera because some value in that loop is always making a white light. You could use something like hot reload to go into that method, change the color to, let's say, the red light, and you can apply that change. And because that method is rerun every second to rotate the camera, it'll be picked up on the timer and re-executed, right? The code has to be re-executed. That's one of the key parameters of like how hot reload works. If the code is already executing, hot reload can't do anything about it. But when the code is re-executed, the camera will change values and the visual will change color. Same thing for .NET, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay, let's stick to hot reload questions and then we answer the rest.
Right, so I'll go in here. If there's more questions, I can keep talking about it, but let's show the cool new demo. So here I am.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just one more.
Go
the
ahead.
difference in performance between this version and older version, I believe that is related to hot reload, but maybe folks are asking about .NET. Specify whether you're curious about .NET 6, Visual Studio, hot reload. I think there are no perf differences in hot reload versions, right? Yep.
No, it's all the
and
same.
No major differences between like preview releases of Visual Studio and .NET, but .NET 6 compared to .NET 5 is much faster, and .NET 5 is faster than .NET Core. So
that's always our goal.
Yeah.
We definitely try not to make things slower. If we do, we messed up.
Okay, go ahead now with your amazing demo.
My amazing demo, yeah. It's a quick demo, but it's a good demo. I'm really excited. Again, the amount of planning and work that took us to get here is pretty amazing. Again, kudos to the team. So many of you, I wish were in the live stream with me every week because my dev team deserves all the credit here. I just set up meetings and get us in a direction. But we're excited to show the direction. So here I am. I'm going to press Control F5 to run this WPF app. So here I'm launching a WPF app. It's one of the supported apps for this scenario. And this app has no debugger attached to it. But what we did just do magically behind the scenes is we've injected an agent into your debug app. We will never do this in production scenarios in release mode. But in debug, when you're using VS, we will produce an app instance that has an agent in it. So what does that mean? So today, if I press this button, it just resets this text every single time. So let's go change what that is actually doing behind the scenes. let's go do it in a real way. I'm going to go to the definition of this. Okay, so here's by hello .NET live stream. Let's change it. I'm going to press this magic apply code changes button, go back to the app, and there's the updated text. So this is a really simple demo, but it just demonstrates the fact that we're kind of meeting our commitment to bring hard reload technology to however you want to start your application, whether that's F5, Control F5, or .NET CLI. And with this release, again, we support everything that's listed in the release notes. So you can go in here into the release notes, and you can see all the supported scenarios, and all our supported edits continue to improve. I can already do more than that. I can go in here and I can add a message box. I love adding message boxes. That's fun times. So we can go and make another edit. Without restarting the app, the edit will be here. On top of that, maybe I want to really go old school and I want to start debugging. So I'm going to add a using statement using the usual helper in Visual Studio. So now there's a brand new using statement on top of the diagnostics that wasn't here before. And now I'm going to write line, and I'm going to say hello output. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to apply that change. And then I'm going to go to my output window after clicking the button. And I'm going to go to output. Oh, sorry. Output window's only in debug mode. I'm ahead of myself. But let's do something even more fun. Let's get rid of all the code in this method. Let's start all over again. So I'm going to apply that change. And now this button literally does nothing. If I type in here, it will not be reset. I am now going to put that code back in the way we started in the very beginning, how to reload that, and now it's back to how it was. So just again, really powerful. This works with Winforms, works with console applications. I hope people will give it a shot. That's all I have to demo.
Yay! Awesome.
Yay! Exciting.
Yes. All right. Let's go through questions. Let's see, are there anything for hot reload?
So Jim, if you're having install issues, this show unfortunately is not a great place to ask support questions. I do recommend using our forums, Stack Overflow. There's lots of community and Microsoft support in those places. These videos are never a good place to ask a support question, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but in Visual Studio, in the top right corner, you can go and press on the little human icon and report issue or suggest feedback. And that's how you can get us the feedback or tell us if something is not working for you. And with that, we'll also get information about your Visual Studio build version. So it will help us to track down the issues. So please report your issues from Visual Studio. That's a very good channel to do so.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's a question in the chat about Avalonia support for, I hope I'm saying it right, Avalonia apps for hard reload. Yeah, Avalonia. So we don't test third-party solutions, so it's up to really them to test it. But the technology is built into the core of Visual Studio, and as long as you're targeting .NET Framework or .NET Core or .NET 5 or above, like there's many supported runtimes. So think of hard reload as like there's an experience in VS that's the glue that connects it through the debugger or Control F5. The debugger kind of works anywhere debugger works. Control F5 works in the type of apps that we're able to enable. So that's why there's like a list of what's supported. But debugger is much broader. So debugger today, the great example I like to use is like Azure Functions. If you're debugging Azure Functions locally with the debugger in Visual Studio, all the hard reload stuff will work. Like I've done that demo. I don't have it like ready to go right now, but I'm able to file a new project into an Azure Functions app and use it. So it's really a debugger experience combined with a VS experience combined with some runtime capability. So it hopefully will work. If it doesn't, please report it. If we can help, we will. Maybe something the company will have to do. I'm sure they can work with us on that. So just let us know.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's go from the top. Questions. Any news on enabling the data source window for .NET Winforms projects? It currently works in .NET Framework. Yes, we are concluding a user study to understand how data is used by our developers nowadays. And you can give us feedback by filing issue in Winforms repo, or every time when you get a Visual Studio, new version of Visual Studio, you might see the yellow bar on the top asking to give your feedback. And that's our customer happiness tracking survey. That's how we get what features are most wanted, most required. So please give us feedback. If you see yellow bar, please go through the survey, at least answer the questions that are the most important for you, because I personally read every response from it. And yeah, right now we're trying to understand what will be our data story, and I will keep you posted. So are there any limitations? I think that was the question for hot reload. So Dmitry,
lots of limitations. Yeah, there's a lot of things it can't do, and when it can't do it, the experience you're going to have is you're going to get a prompt in Visual Studio that when you press the Apply Code Changes button, that something isn't supported, and you can restart your app to apply those changes. And we're over time making that list be smaller. Right now, there is documentation for edit and continue. Kind of think of edit and continue as the mechanism behind the scenes that's empowering us, not for everything we're doing, but for a lot of the magic of this technology. And you can therefore use that documentation today to look for limitations. But I find it honestly is quicker just to try making a code change. So let me back up and say, here's how I view it. You're making a code change that you probably need to make. It's not optional, right? Like your app is running, you're looking at the code and you're like, I need to do this, or I want to try doing this. And before, every single change would have to mean a restart. And with hot reload, we will give you an opportunity not to restart, so hopefully save you time. And if we can't, it means you will have to restart. So you'll be no worse off than you were before, just not better. So therefore, I think the workflow that I've used with hot reload isn't really based on me worrying about the limitations. It's more about me making the change I need to make, trying hot reload. If it helps me, it helps me. If it doesn't, I restart and I continue developing. Because it's not like those changes are optional. It's not like hot reload is the customer, right? My app is the customer, and hot reload is just a helping hand.
Makes sense. Perfect. All right. What are differences between using MSX, Click Once, or even Linux installer? That is a big topic, but sure, let's talk briefly about it. Yeah, so we have different deployment options that are available for our desktop applications. There is a MSI, right? Good old MSI, which is, when was it invented, Dmitry? Do you remember?
Long time ago. I was building MSIs at the start of my career, so it has to be 20 plus years, like crazy.
Yeah, probably something like that. And it is, from what I hear from our users, right now it's most commonly used when hardware interaction and driver binding are necessary. So in those cases, users prefer to use MSI, but MSI doesn't have online updating, and many other features are not present there. So if you don't have like a really hard dependency on hardware, users prefer to move to more modern packages. Then goes Click Once. Click Once is also pretty old, but still very, very popular solution for deployment. And what are your thoughts, Dmitry, on Click Once?
Yeah, I think I have thoughts. I mean, Click Once again goes back to like, I don't know, like 15 years ago in my career when I used to use it for production of deployments, and not much has changed from that time. You still want to have, I mean, again, installer technology is only useful if it helps you with your scenario, right? A lot of times, a particular packaging mechanism will give you trade-offs, and if those trade-offs don't help you, you therefore have to do the research and make the right trade-offs and choose the right technology. The reason why we chose Click Once in the past was because it was good for enterprise applications inside the firewall in the way that I used it. It was easy to use. It could easily be produced out of our CI pipeline. We didn't call it a CI pipeline back then, but same idea, our build process. And customers had an easy experience, which was the really big part of it. Every time they started their app, it was really good for us that the app would be patched if a newer version was available. All of these customers were in a private network, so they always had access to the private version of these applications. There was a security mechanism around the Active Directory, so it all worked well together and gave us a great end-to-end scenario. Nowadays, some people love MSIX because they find that for their application, their trade-offs, again, meet the requirements. And then lots of people roll their own installers. Lots of people still use MSIs. There's this thing called Squirrel out there, which a lot of people really like to use. So it really depends on your requirements. Unfortunately, you have to do the homework. It's like the MVVM question in chat of like, what's the right MVVM framework to choose?
Right.
Same answer as an installer. You have to do your homework.
Yeah. So yeah, just to add to, Click Once is super widely used. And when we initially thought that maybe it's old tech and we're not going to bring it to .NET Core, we heard a very loud feedback. They're like, no, we want Click Once. So we enabled it a bit later, but now it is supported in .NET 5, .NET 6. It's not exactly one-to-one mapping with the Click Once in .NET Framework, but the majority of scenarios are there. And as for MSIX, there are great features, differentiating features, and there are also some limitations. And that makes some folks love MSIX and some folks not so much. So among differentiating features, there is a dependency management and sharing, where application manifest declares dependencies that MSIX platform will ensure are present. And for example, if two apps deployed using MSIX share one dependency, the platform manages a single instance of that dependency. They are not getting duplicated. Then there are also package signing and verification, and clean and install, where the file system and registry virtualization allow for complete removal of application data on an install. That's what I read on the website.
Yeah, it's very powerful part of that sort of value proposition, the fact that you have a clean environment. It's something we, like when I used to build MSIs, I used to be a release manager for a few years, and it was a struggle. Getting a machine back to a clean state was not a magical given, and MSIX tries to make it more magical. Nothing is perfect, but look at the trade-offs.
Yes, but that comes with the price of containerization, right? So MSIX app runs in a container against a virtualized file system and registry. And this approach could limit the native hosts aim to support out-of-prod custom modules if we go So basically, you need to pay for everything. Also, the benefits of MSIX machine-wide installs. The app installer service runs in a Windows service, and the required permissions to handle machine-wide installs and dependency installation. And limitations, I've heard the feedback that user strings that MSIX works with does not work very well for some folks, and they have to use the custom in-app logic to manage deployment rings, so they had some troubles with that. And so on. And there is also a third-party open source solution called Squirrel that many developers also like. And Squirrel, it is similar to Click Once, and it is cross-platform, so it deploys on Windows and on Mac. And the main concept of Squirrel is to be super easy. I think the creator did a very good job with that. The downside, or like the area that is not so well covered, is enterprise features for Squirrel, but for many scenarios, Squirrel works amazingly, and I've met many people who absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's a great technology. I really give those folks credit. We've spent a lot of time thinking about Squirrel here, and it's a great product.
Yeah. All right, let's move forward. Is there a Windows API where I can get real-time data, preferred JSON, of Task Manager? I don't know from the top of my head, but that's probably a Google question. You can Google that.
Yes.
All right. When will we be able to develop native desktop macOS app using Visual Studio?
So that's a good question, and right now we do not have plans to make this scenario possible, as far as I know. So I don't think this is coming in this release wave.
Not yet. Yeah. It depends. Okay, we already talked about performance. I think folks are asking for references for hot reload. So Dmitry can drop in the chat any links. But usually if you go to .NET Visual Studio blog post and just look at the release of the latest Visual Studio version, there will be hot reload for sure.
Yeah. We like I try to really do a good job on making sure our release notes have all the information. So you can always go to, like if you go to Google and search for Visual Studio release notes, VS 2022, and if you look at Preview 2 as an example, or Preview 1, you'll see that I'm putting all the hot reload information in there. So sometimes the blogs are a committee. Like there's a bunch of people that decide what is or isn't in a particular blog post. But our release notes are PM owned and operated. So you can always get the full information there that sometimes I can't put into a blog post. But we will be blogging. I'm actually kind of behind on a blog post. It's the thing I feel guilty about every day, that I'm behind on getting a hot reload blog out. But I'm going to cross my fingers that next week you'll see it live and you'll have more information there as well.
Perfect. Next question, which MVM framework do you recommend to be used in WPF app?
Whichever works for you.
Yeah.
Do the research. There's a lot. And really, some are kind of like more capable, some are lighter, some are heavier, some are considered by the community more supported. We don't make these things, so it's really not up to us to decide, I would say.
Perfect. Is there a way to hot reload code on save?
Yeah, so Phil and I have been talking about this in chat as we talk here. So it is available in Preview 2 for ASP.NET. So and it's on by default. There's actually no way to turn it off in Preview 2. So if you're in Preview 2 and you open up an ASP.NET app and you make a change and you press save, we'll hot reload. Starting in Preview 3, if everything goes well, please don't kill me if we don't release on time. But we're really trying to make this finally a setting and make it more globally available. So we're actively working on making Control Save be an option for all app types that you can just toggle on and off. So you'll be able to use the button or then toggle into save and then toggle out of save and still use the button. So that's the flow we're looking to give you.
Awesome. Right, will hot reload support changes in generic context in .NET 6 or anytime soon?
It pains me not to have a better answer, but right now we don't have a concrete plan on when this will be resolved. We do want to resolve it. It's complicated. The kind of logic that generics generate behind the scenes that hot reload would have to then adjust is actually super complicated, like more complicated than we want. There are some creative solutions that might be possible, so we are looking at them, and I just don't know. I'll be honest. My gut is that it won't make .NET 6. That's my gut feeling. But if it does, it'll be a pleasant surprise, and .NET 7, it's on my hit list for sure.
Awesome. All right. Great, and many great comments about quick ones. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. What about remove unused references for .NET Framework projects? So the development for .NET Framework is done, and all new features will go to the .NET 6, 5, whatever next version is. We are not updating .NET Framework. We just deliver security updates, OS updates, whatever is required to make sure existing applications work, but all new stuff is going to .NET, .NET 6, .NET 5, .NET 6, and so on. So update if you want to stay on the latest version of .NET.
Yeah, but I'm actually surprised that is something the customer is saying doesn't work. I thought that feature worked with Framework, but I could be very
I thought
wrong.
It's been around forever. Yeah.
I would say, like, we have documentation for it. So if you Google for the words "remove unused references," Visual Studio, you'll find some documentation page. And Mika Dumont is the PM for it. So if you have problems, she's pretty responsive on Twitter, and you can see her name right there, up there on the documentation at the top of it. So you'll be able to find her and let her know if there's any issues. But really, the right way is, like, if something is not working, use V as feedback. That's how you get us feedback.
Yeah. I think this is the question: are we making hot reload work for console apps?
Yeah. So this is actually on that chain of questions around control save. At least that's how I interpreted it. So we are making control save work, hopefully in preview 3 for a lot more app types. Console is on the list for sure.
Perfect. Do we need to concern about .NET Standard when importing a DLL from a third-party developer in WPF apps? So, not sure what do you mean by being concerned about .NET Standard, but regarding .NET Standard in general, if you're going to stay on the latest versions of .NET, starting from .NET 5, .NET 6, .NET Standard is not needed anymore. Basically, everything is in .NET. But if you are going to target previous versions, like if you want your library to be used by .NET Framework applications and older versions of .NET, then you can use .NET Standard. Moving forward, .NET Standard won't be needed for .NET 5, .NET 6, and so on. Dmitry, if you have anything to add to that.
Nope.
Go ahead. All right.
Not to that one.
How do we get MSX to modify the global registry so Google Omaha can tell that our app update actually installed?
Yeah, that's a great question for somebody to post on our forums or Stack Overflow. I don't think we're the right audience for that, unfortunately.
Yes. Is VB.NET not supported anymore? Should we migrate to C#? VB.NET is supported. It's supported in .NET 5 and .NET 6, and you can develop now Winforms and WPF on VB.NET. Another question is, if you prefer C#, of course you can migrate, and C# is a different language. That really depends on your preference, but we support VB. And there are, I will even drop some links about VB in the chat. And moving on, Dmitry, if you want to read the next question.
Sure. Let's see here.
Or I can, how about this one? What types of desktop apps will be available on macOS with MAUI?
Yeah, so we're basically making the iOS app be available as a Catalyst app on macOS. So that's the plan. We are very prolific bloggers. David on our PM team does a lot of blogging. All the information is there. I highly recommend reading the blogs. I'm not going to do it justice in a single question like this, but all the information is publicly available already and what our plans are. And there's really nothing else. So if you read our plans and they're not giving you the right answers, then fortunately that is the scope for this release. For example, Linux comes up a lot, and unfortunately, no, we are not making Linux apps available as part of this release. It's in our hopes and for the future, but for now, our scope is what it is in that sense. Great question. Thank you, Jason.
Will Windows Forms Designer ever have back the performance of .NET Framework version for .NET Core, .NET 5, .NET 6? No lags, no delay. Great question. Yes, we're working to get it there. And right now, the focus for all Winforms team is around performance. So we're aware that is a problem, and we're working very hard to remove it and to improve the perf. If I were to recreate an old WPF application, which platform do you recommend? WPF in .NET Core or .NET MAUI? That really depends on your use case. do you want your application to be cross-platform? Do you want your application to run on mobile and desktop? If so, try .NET MAUI. If you want to reuse the code, porting from WPF .NET Framework, taking your old application and moving it to .NET Core, and I would recommend .NET 6, will be much, much easier. And we have a tool for upgrading your app to the latest .NET. It is called Upgrade Assistant. I'll also drop the link in the chat. So if you're lucky, that tool can do all the work for you. You just specify the path to your old WPF application, and the tool will upgrade it to the latest .NET. All right. Will Microsoft desktop apps work on Harmony OS?
Yeah, again, this comes back to, I actually don't even know what Harmony OS is, but again, our scope is in the blog post. I really recommend going there to look for it.
Yes. Here the Winforms design. Okay, awesome. With Visual Studio 2022 in development, is all new work on Winforms WPF being done there instead of Visual Studio 2019? So some work went to 2019 and all the future goes to 2022. If you want the latest, get the latest preview of 2022. All right, that is a great question. When are scheduled this kind of sessions about desktop community? It is once a month on Thursdays. So that is third Thursday of the month, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Join us. Dmitry, do you know this one? What is the minimum CPU?
Yeah, sorry. I see the question. I jump ahead. You're right to read it. So what is the minimum CPU requirements to run .NET 5 and .NET 6? So we have extensive documentation on that. If you just Google for .NET 5 requirements, you'll find the minimum requirements up there on the website. It's not something I carry in my head, unfortunately.
Okay. So perf improvements for Winforms Designer will go to VS 2022.
All right.
All right. I think we caught up with the questions. So
yeah.
If you guys have anything else, please ask us questions in the chat. If not, we'll give it a few more minutes. Okay, does MAUI desktop apps support browsers? Or we need to have another?
Unfortunately, no. Again, I put a link to the latest blog post. We outline which platforms we support. We are supporting Android, iOS, and macOS through Catalyst. And Windows, of course, through WinUI. So those are the supported platforms. We don't have Linux support. We don't have native macOS apps. We don't support any other OSs or web, unfortunately. We hear you, though. It'd be nice if MAUI apps could run in more places. We also want that to happen. It's just a matter of resourcing and quality. So, we'll do everything we can in this release. And we look to your feedback, such as comments in this program, to see what you're excited about. So please keep the comments coming.
Yes. Excellent. I posted a few links to VB in .NET 5, the blog post of our developer Klaus Lepperman, and the link to Upgrade Assistant. So if you haven't tried porting your application to .NET 6, check out Upgrade Assistant. Maybe it will take you no time and you'll be on the latest .NET. When will Visual Studio 2022 GA expected to be released? It is expected in the fall, late fall. Right? Oh, I apologize. No, that's .NET 6 and 2022. It's the year 2022, but I don't think we have any specific dates right now, right, Dmitry?
Yeah. The reality is, like, obviously as soon as possible.
Right.
It'll probably, I don't know. I mean, it's going to take time, right? And really, just have patience with us. We will at some point announce, an RC and things, and that'll mean it's coming soon. But we will delay as much as we need to make it a quality product. We're really committed to quality, and sometimes it's hard to say when something will release. The reason why Olia and I can speak more confidently about .NET is because we made a commitment to customers on a release schedule. VS doesn't have that kind of commitment and has a lot more complexity. VS has to carry a lot more than just .NET. And it has to carry .NET. So it has to have all the .NET tooling, which is a huge amount of work, and it has to have all the Python tooling and Azure tooling, and it has to be an app that's efficient, runs efficiently and doesn't crash. So we'll take our time with it, and we really hope to get it out next year. It would suck if it's not out next year. It'll be out next year. I mean, that's for sure. That's the latest. 2022.
Yes. Right. The next question. For Winforms high DPI work that's been done, do we need to do anything ourselves, or is it baked into the framework? Let me share my screen again. This is a simple Winforms application, basically file new. So if you're creating a new application, by default, you're getting those lines, set high DPI mode system aware. And that should fix many of the issues. And also we have a new enable visual styles. If you are porting your application to .NET 5, .NET 6, consider adding this line. And here you can set different high DPI modes. Let me go and see. There are DPI and aware, system aware, per monitor v2, DPI and aware, GDI scale. So you can play with different modes. Are desktop apps portable? Means can we copy the executable file and run on another device, or installation is must? Dmitry, want to take this one, or I can speak to that?
Yeah. So we the way that MAUI works is that it is a wrapper around local native platforms. So let's use WinUI and Windows as an example. WinUI today is not X-copyable. WinUI in later this year is supposed to get there when they remove the MSIX dependency, as an example. So it's really a WinUI question rather than a MAUI question. Once the app is produced by us, in other words, the executable is built, it depends on the technology behind that executable, whether it's portable or not. So we hope that WinUI will be portable. It's not a done deal yet. There's still a bunch of work to get there. It might not make it this year for all, things happen. But let's assume a really happy path where everything goes the way I'm hoping it will. Then by end of year, a MAUI app on WinUI will be X-copy deployable. Whether that's the story for iOS, Android, macOS for Catalyst, I'm really not an expert there, and it's not exactly a Windows system where you X-copy things, iOS, Android specifically, right? So it really depends on the platform too, where sometimes that principle doesn't even apply. But if you're talking about Windows, hopefully this year that will be a possibility.
Yes.
You can certainly sideload it, an app. I mean, it's again, it's iOS and Android work a certain way. macOS works a certain way with Catalyst. Whatever that way is, that's what's possible. That's what it comes down to. Good question.
Do we need to use high DPI in WPF apps? Now, what I was talking about, that was Winforms apps. I believe we don't have those APIs in WPF, and you don't need to do any settings. It's supposed to work fine. And if you experience any issues with high DPI for WPF, definitely please log them in Visual Studio. I can show again how to work. So here, click on this icon and report the problem or suggest the feature. That's the best way to give us feedback. Are there any standard icons for Windows that we can use in our desktop applications and sell the application reports in the web? That is a good question, Dmitry. Do you know?
It's yeah. So well, I don't know 100%, but I can give you my best take on what I think the question is. So the question I think is around making apps look nice. So Winforms and WPF apps, that could be theming, that could be icons. We provide what we provide in the box. Like we don't provide anything else. And over time, there's been third-party community. Sometimes Microsoft, I think, has released open source things that enable you to use various graphical themes or icons or pictures license-free in your app. But you have to do the homework. You have to find them. You have to find the ones that help you for your particular app type, and you have to make sure the license meets your needs. And that Olia and I can't answer that for you. We can only tell you that these things do exist out there, but you have to do your homework and make sure you don't get into legal trouble.
Right. Yes. Is the runtime package sufficient to deploy the app on Linux or Apple?
So the question, I think Boss is correcting himself. Apple, I mean macOS.
Okay.
I mean we don't build the runtime package for Linux, so that's not going to be possible with .NET MAUI, if that's the question. You will be able to deploy to macOS. That's the goal that we have, and I'm not an expert in that area. Unfortunately, MAUI is such a large product space that not every MAUI PM, unfortunately, has all the information for every component and every type of app type. I'm more specialized on the Windows side. David Ortno on our team, watches after macOS. If he was here, he could answer this question easily. But certainly, David is really accessible. David Ortno on our team, ping him on Twitter if you have questions. He's pretty responsive.
Yes.
Sorry, David, threw you under the bus.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do here.
There was a question about WinUI, but unfortunately, we don't have information when WinUI 2.6 usual styles will be in WinUI 3. That is a different team and division. So
yeah, but they have a
maybe on their
GitHub repo.
roadmap.
Yeah, go look at their GitHub repo. They might have it on the roadmap. You can open an issue. Like there's ways to ask that team questions, definitely. And they have their own stand-up, so you can join their stand-up and ask them there.
Yeah. Is there any embedded database to be used with desktop apps, or we'll need to use SQLite, SQL Express, or not Lite? So, and Alex already responded. I wonder, can I show both? No, I can show just one command. That you can look at LiveDB, and basically you need some DB to use. Whichever, if SQL is too heavy, look at lighter options, but we don't have embedded databases, right? Am I correct, Dmitry?
This story has changed a lot over the years. I used to be involved with the SQL team, and I used to have more in my head. Now it's all been archived and taken out and put into tape backup storage, so I don't know what's in there. But what I can tell you is that there's lots of people in the community really passionate about databases, Stack Overflow, forums, Twitter. There's lots of places to ask this question where you can get a much probably better response. And people responding in chat already make me happy. So thank you, Alex, for giving a suggestion there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for giving us feedback. Thank you for sharing stories about your apps. That's super helpful for us to know.
Yeah, well, we're pretty much at time, and it's been really great to hear from the community. We love doing these Q&As. I hope you folks will come back next time and ask more questions. Olia and I try to be here every month to provide answers the best we can.
Yes. Now it's going to be every month, third Thursday, 10 a.m. Join us. And talk to us via Twitter. Here are Twitter handles. We always respond to those questions or comments or report issues via Visual Studio. Go to repo, report issues, suggestions there. If you're willing to become a contributor, there are app for grabs or easy first issue tags. So go ahead. We really love our open source community and very, very thankful for all your contributions. And with that, thank you so much, guys. See you next month. Have a good
See you
one.
later. Bye.
Bye.